Thanks very much for joining us. And now we have the opportunity and the pleasure of introducing the dog into the equation. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure we keep in mind is to keep the dog training sessions with your dog fun and very informal. A couple of things that we want to go through before we even get started, a couple of ground rules to make sure that everybody is safe, is we want to make sure that whenever we're training our dogs that we always have them on a leash. Don't ever use a flexible leash because it can cause injuries and give you less control of the dog. Okay? So I believe that the leash that Henna has here with Mr. is very suitable. It's not a retractable leash. We also have the basic nylon 6-foot or 5-foot leashes as well. Another thing that you really want to keep in mind, I don't think we're going to have too much trouble with these guys, maybe with the exception of Mr. over here. You want to make sure that at all times when you're using the leash and when you're working with your dogs that you keep their paws on the floor. We say God gave dogs 4 paws for a reason. Use them all. Okay? And I'm going to give you a highlight kind of an example. If you ever wanted to encounter a situation where you wanted to start a dog fight between a small dog and a large dog, really the only thing that you have to do is pick up the small dog. Dogs fundamentally, when they first meet one another, the first 2 to 3 seconds, the interaction is determined based on size and height. And what we have a tendency to do with the owners of small dogs is we see a large dog approach, and the small dog, we have a tendency to bend over and pick them up. Well, one of 2 things are going to happen, or maybe even both, the third option. Okay? First of all, when you pick the dog up, the dog that's going up is either going to yang, 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 at the other dog, the larger dog that they're leaving behind. That's the first thing that's going to happen. The second thing that could potentially happen is if the dog doesn't yap on the way up, then subsequently the larger dog may land a bum bite because the dog is up higher and the larger dog will try to jump and bite. And the third option that may ensue, of course, is a combination of both. You get the small dog jumping or yapping on the way up, the larger dog goes to land the bum bite, and all of a sudden you have a dog fight that's happening in your arms. The reason why that happens is because you're changing the hierarchy, the social hierarchy between those 2 dogs faster than the dogs can actually socially manipulate. Okay? So you're taking the small dog and giving them lots of confidence being in your arms. Okay? Lots of guidance, lots of self-confidence that they think that they can take on the world at that point. Okay? And then sometimes they do. So they have 4 paws. They are your dog. I understand that they're also kind of your kid, but at the same time, we want to make sure that all of the training that we go through is safe. Okay? So, Henna, Mr. has to stay on the ground. Okay? The other thing that I want to make absolutely certain, this is one of the cardinal rules. I will help you guys throughout this, but this is the cardinal rule that if you break this rule, your dog training days are all but over. We say, at no point in your training sessions with your dog, at no point is it ever okay to yell, kick, hit, or strike your animal. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why. Can I bore you for a second, Henna? Yeah. I'm going to come over to you for a second. And you and I have known each other for a while. There's no bad blood between us? There's no hard feelings? No. Okay. There's no hard feelings. All right. So we're sitting here socializing. I say, how was your day? You say, Stephanie, my day was great, da-da-da, whatever. And then out of nowhere, unbeknownst to you, I take my fist and I smack you in the face. And I say to you, I say, Henna, oh my goodness, Henna, I am so sorry. I didn't mean that. I had an awful day at work today. That will never happen again. I am so sorry. Will you forgive me? No. No, maybe not. Let's say you do forgive me. And then next week you come back to training and I say, hey, Henna, how are you? What are you likely to do? Absolutely. Even though I apologized, I sincerely felt awful about it, I didn't mean it, the cause of it was because of something totally unrelated to you, but the point being is that the relationship between you and I will never be the same after that. It will never, no matter what I do, how often I apologize, and how good I treat you after that situation, the trust and relationship between you and I will never be the same as it was before I hit you. So the point of this whole story is when your dog's frustrating you and they're not doing what you think that they should be doing, as soon as you go, oh, stop it, and smack their muzzle, you have now destroyed the relationship. You may get a bit of it back, but you will never get to the point where you were before you struck the dog, okay? It's really important to understand that because our training is based on positive reinforcement, okay? So, having said that, these dogs are all being very well behaved, so let's introduce our dogs and our handlers. Over here we have Tara with her 1.5-year-old German short-haired pointer named Dottie, who's joining us for our A Foundation for All course. We have Nadine, with whom you're familiar already, and she's handling a dog by the name of Nash. He is a 9-month-old golden doodle. Okay? And then we have Henna, who you just met, and Henna is handling her 8-year-old dog named Mister. Okay? So these are going to be our class participants throughout the duration of our 5 weeks together. So the first thing to understand, I guess, is why some of the dogs do what they do. Okay? So what are some of the problem behaviors that you might experience at home in everyday life with your dog? What do they do that you don't like? Jumping. Absolutely, they're jumping. Nash will sometimes grab a hold of your arm or mouthing or something. What about Mister? He pees everywhere. He pees everywhere. Well, these dogs, because they're being so well behaved, it's hard to outline exactly, but you're going to see it sometime during the course of these sessions. But it's important to understand, why does Dottie jump on you? Why is that? Okay, so let's understand it. What I want you to do, I want you to look at your dog right now. Look at your dog. And if I say, you know what a snow globe is? Do you know what a snow globe is? Like at Christmas time, the things that you shake? Okay. If you were to I want you to picture your dog as a snow globe. Okay? If you were to take a glass snow globe and put it over a source of energy, like, I don't know, a Bunsen burner or an open campfire or something, what would eventually happen to the snow globe? It would break, right? I don't need to be a chemist or a scientist to know that the water would get warm and the pressure, and eventually the snow globe would explode. Well, obviously we don't have dogs spontaneously combusting all over the country, okay? But it does come out in a different way. So look at your dog, picture your dog as a snow globe, and I want you to understand where that comes from. When a dog has too much energy in its little body, more than it can contain, it's going to come out in one of 3 ways: a bark, a bite, or a lunge. So where does that energy come from? A lot of people think that it's all physical. I didn't run my dog enough, I didn't walk my dog enough. And that's only part of the problem, because the other problem is emotionally based. I'm not a dog psychiatrist, I don't talk to passed away animals, nothing like that. But we are going to have a better understanding of why your dog does what they do. So, Nadine, let's say, do you have any siblings?
Yes.
You have a sibling, right? And what I'm about to tell you is completely false, okay? It's completely, absolutely. There's no shred of truth to this. So your parents knew that you were coming here today, and they couldn't get a hold of you because you had your cell phone off. So they called me and said, Stephanie, I need you to pass on a message to Nadine. There's been a car accident, and Nadine's sister is critically injured or has passed away. What would your reaction be? What would you do?
In shock?
Sure, you'd be in shock. What would it look like?
I would fall in a puddle, likely.
Sure. You might even cry.
Yeah.
You might even cry. But the point being is you didn't get that piece of news and say, oh, that's bad news. I should probably cry.
Just reacted.
You just reacted. So Tara, likewise for you, if I told you that you won the Powerball from 2 weeks ago, 200 billion or whatever it was, so what would your reaction be?
Scream, jump, and run.
Absolutely. You'd be like, woohoo, this is fantastic. But you didn't say, oh, that's good news. What would an appropriate reaction to good news be? You didn't. You got a piece of information, and it stimulated you, and you had an outburst. Same with the dogs. Comes out in that bark, bite, or lunge, okay? When the emotion is a positive emotion, joy, anticipation, excitement, thrill, that's a positive emotion, but it will still come out in a bark, bite, or lunge. It's just the bark is like, ruff, 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 and I'm throwing a ball, and I'm going to pretend to the dog like I'm throwing the ball. And the dog stands back, and he starts barking at me. That's excitement, and that's a bark. He doesn't know, or he or she doesn't know how to contain themselves, so it comes out in a bark. The bite, when they get really excited, like when you come home from work or whichever, and they might grab your pant leg, or they might grab your shirt sleeve, or they might grab a slipper and carry it around. Make no mistake, it's still a bite. In dog training land, people don't like to think that their friendly dog bites, so we call it mouthing, okay? It's still a bite. It's an opening of the jaw and a closing of the jaw, okay? And then the next one is the lunge. The lunge is Dottie's issue. The lunge, when it's a happy emotion, when it's a positive emotion, it comes out in the form of jumping. It's just happy and vertical. However, on the flip side, when the emotion's a negative emotion, fear, anxiety, stress, apprehension, all of those things that can materialize in the dog, it still comes out in a bark, bite, or lunge, but it looks very different, okay? The barking comes out as rawr, 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 and you see teeth and all of these signs that the dog is uncomfortable. You'll see the bite. The bite of a terrified dog usually is a clamp on and a shake, okay? They're going to sustain some type of injury to buy them time to get away from you, okay? And the lunge is horizontal and targeted at something. And so you see dogs lunging at another dog or lunging at a person, okay? That's what we're talking about. Positive emotion, happy bark, bite, or lunge. Negative emotion, a negative, afraid, fearful bark, bite, or lunge, okay? So that's why some of these dogs do what they do. It's because they have so much energy building up inside of them that it has to come out. One of the points of this particular session is to make sure that you know how to identify what's happening and then how to handle it from there, okay? So, let me ask you this, okay? We will get to some exercises in a second, but this is pretty crucial framework for you. How many of you would be here if I told you that under no circumstances we do not use positive reinforcement training? How many of you would be here? You say, sign me up for that. No, you wouldn't. You're all here because we promoted this class as using positive reinforcement techniques, okay? So based on the fact that we use positive reinforcement techniques, and you guys have already said that you all want it, what is it? Anybody know what it is? You're here because you want me to train you how to train with positive reinforcement techniques. You wouldn't be here if I didn't use positive reinforcement techniques. So, what is it that you want? What is it? What is positive reinforcement training?
When you don't use any aggression or yelling, and you just correct it with silence, maybe, and then...
Okay. When you don't use correction. Okay. Any other ideas? Treats? Okay. Well, let me tell you, positive reinforcement training is the most used, least understood dog training term that I know today. Everybody wants it, but nobody knows what it is. And I'm going to tell you what it is, okay? And this is where it's two-part. And most people, like Nadine, you got the first part, okay? We got the first part. But the second part is probably the most critical to the success of training your dog. So the first thing is we want to reward the desired behavior. Okay? When the dog does something we want them to do, we want to reward them with that. But the second part, and the most crucial part, is when the dog does something you don't want them to do, we need to correct. We need to say, no, no, don't do that. And then here it is. You need to show them what to do instead. So similar to, anybody have any nieces or nephews? Nieces or nephews, okay. If you had a 3-year-old child who is taking a pair of scissors from the kitchen to the living room in their house, and they grab the scissors and they wildly run through the house and they're like, I got the scissors, what would you do? Ah! But you wouldn't say, Billy, don't do that. You would say, Billy, you'd go over to Billy and you say, whenever you go with scissors, don't run with scissors. Whenever you need to take scissors from one place to another, you always point them down and walk. So with kids, we do that really well. We say, don't do this, Billy. Do this instead. Don't do this. This is how it should be done instead. And that is how the child learns. It's not unlike your dog. Don't jump. I want you to sit instead. Don't do this. I want you to sit instead. Or don't do this. I want you to do this instead. Because we need to be clearer with our direction to the dogs, not just don't do this, but you need to tell them what it is that you want from them, okay? And that's the communication with your dog is paramount because otherwise they're just left guessing what it is you want, okay? And they're unlikely to succeed. So, having said that, we want to make sure that we know how to reward them. So, what is the single most sought after reward for your dog? No, it is not food, but it's a great guess. What does it look like? Well, let me tell you. The single most sought after reward from your dog comes in the form of touch. Affection in the form of touch. Now, a lot of people say praise. They're like, what does praise look like? Dottie, good girl. Good girl, Dottie. That's a good girl. Is she getting anything? Does she know that what she's doing is excellent? No. If I walk over to Dottie and touch her and say, good girl, or if I do that to Nash and say, good boy, then he knows what he's doing is appropriate. What you need to remember, the rule of thumb, okay, when training your dog, anytime you put your hands on your dog, it directly equates to good boy or good girl. This is the reward. Now, one of the things I told you to bring to school today was treats. So the fact that the true reward for your dog comes in the form of touch doesn't negate the need for treats, okay? We do use treats, but we don't want to give them any more power than they've warranted. So let's figure out what we're going to do for treats. What is the purpose of a treat? Okay? Don't give them too much credit. The point of the treat is nothing more and nothing less than bait. The treat is used to lure the dog into a position or into doing something for which you can then give them the reward, which is touch. Okay? So, I'm going to do an example. Can I borrow Dottie just for a second, Tara? Would you mind? So, Tara, this is the first time I've met Dottie. Does she know how to do figure eights on command? Are you sure? This is not scripted. Okay. Well, let's try. Dottie, do figure eights. Dottie, do figure eights. Figure eights. Okay, I have my little piece of treat. Dottie, let's do figure eights. Yes, good girl. Oh, that's wonderful, figure eights. And then I give her the treat, and I say, good figure eights. Good girl, Dottie. Good girl. What a good girl. That was awesome. Okay? That's the purpose of the treat. The treat is to lure the dog into doing something successful so that we can actually celebrate with them. And then they know they've done something really good. Okay? Was I concerned at that time that Dottie was jumping a bit? We'll get to that. Okay? We'll get to the whole jumping situation. So the point of the treat is to lure them, then we need to celebrate. Okay? So having said that, how big of a treat should you use? Okay? If treats actually aren't the reward, but they're just the bait, what we want is a nice smelly treat. In my case, I'm using freeze-dried liver. Okay? And you definitely don't want your treat to be any bigger. That's big. Okay, no bigger than that. Okay? No bigger than that. It's not to fill the dog up. It's only used to lure them into doing something that we want them to do. Okay? Highly smelly treats work wonders with dogs. So the next thing that we're going to do before we go into an exercise is determine how to hold a treat. Okay, so how many of you just said, are you kidding? I paid for this course to learn how to hold a treat. It has much more value than you might think. So what I want you to do is I want you to each get a treat out of your pouch or out of your pocket. I want you to do this. I want you to put the treat in between your thumb and your index finger with your other 3 fingers up. Now, there's no need to go all arthritic or anything. It's just kind of like, how you doing? I'm doing okay. There you go. All right? I'm doing okay. Now, the reason for this is twofold. First of all, Tara, if I were to ask you, from where you're standing with me right now, are you able to see if I've got a treat in there or not? Not really. And guys, at the end of the day, sometimes you need your dog to think that you have a treat when you don't. For example, when they're running to the road. And unless you would like to spend the rest of your life carrying milk bones around in your pocket, sometimes you need the dog to think that you have a treat when you actually don't. The second thing is that these 3 fingers are going to be really, really important in these classes. So what I call this, I said, you know, load your puppy Pez dispenser. Okay, this is your puppy Pez dispenser. Okay? And so what we're going to do is every time we treat the dog or have a treat in our hand, we're going to always hold it like this. Because what you'll notice is that you're going to be able to control a lot of your dog's movements and behavior without a treat just by doing this. Yes. And I have no treat. Good boy. Yes, good boy, Nash. Good boy. Good job. Okay. All right, so now we know how to hold the treat. The other thing we need to do is make sure we know how to train the dog. Okay? So there's 2 things we need to identify straight away. The first thing is we need to establish a marker word. A word that we're going to use every time the dog does exactly what we've just asked them to do. And that marker word in this class is going to be yes. Okay? So when you tell your dog to sit and the dog sits, we say yes. All right? The second is, remember with positive reinforcement training, every time the dog does something you don't want them to do, we need to correct them and then show them what to do. Well, that correction word is going to be Please try to refrain from using the word no. And I say that because the word no is so significantly overused in today's language, and the dog can't differentiate between N-O and K-N-O-W. And so you're just talking on the phone to your friend, and the dog's laying at your feet, and your friend says, where do you want to go for dinner? And you say, oh, I don't know. To the dog, they're just laying there, they're not doing anything wrong, and all of a sudden they heard you correct them. Okay? So is short, it's concise, and it's stern, it's assertive, but it's not punitive. Okay? So when the dog does something we want, we say yes, with a little enthusiasm. And when they do something we don't want, we say and then we show them with our bait what we want them to do. Okay? So let's go on to our first exercise. Let's get the dogs moving. Okay? And you at home, what I want you to do, make sure your dog is on a leash, and we're going to do our first exercise together. Okay? So I want you to load your puppy Pez dispenser. Okay. So the first command, and this particular session of the course is designed, and it surfaces and circles all around one primary command. And this command is the precursor to all other training that you will do for the lifetime of your dog. If you can nail this one down, you've got it made. And this is the look command. And why is it, she's fine. And why is it so important? If you were to take 2 students the last day of school in June in high school, and they're in biology class, and one is at the back of the room watching the baseball game outside, and one is at the front of the room watching the teacher, who do you think is going to learn more? The one at the front of the room actually watching the teacher. And so what we want to do is before we give the dog any other command, we want to get their attention on us. If the dog's attention is on us, what is it not on? Everything else. Okay? So we want to get the attention. If you can look at your dog and you say, Fluffy, look, and Fluffy goes, what? Then it's so easy from there. Okay? So the look command is paramount. All right? And the more you practice this command, the more effective all of this training and the remainder of this training is going to be. So, all I want you to do, you got your puppy Pez dispenser. All I want you to do is say your dog's name and tell them to look at you. I'm going to show you how that's done. Okay? So, can I borrow Nash for a second, Nadine? Would you mind? Load my puppy Pez dispenser. Okay? And I'm going to say, Nash, look. Yes, good boy. Good look, Nash. Good look. That's a good boy right there. Well done. That's it. I don't care if he's looking me in the eye. I don't care where, as long as he's looking in my direction. When I say, Fluffy, look, and the dog goes, huh? That's good enough for me. I mark it with yes, I give them the treat, and I have a little party with them. Give it a try. And you at home, you want to take this time as well to make sure that you're practicing the exercise. We're going to do it 5 times in a row. All right, let's go. Yes. You as the dog trainer are looking specifically for the dog to look in your direction. Yes. Okay. I'm going to stop you guys right there just for a second. I'm going to stop you guys there just for a second. We're going to go through one fundamental rule of thumb. Okay? One fundamental rule of thumb. And I want you to think about this just for a second. I want you to think about your interaction with your dog over the past 7 days. Okay? What have you done with your dog in the past 7 days? And then I want you to think about this rule of thumb. Your dog's name is not a command. Okay? I'm going to help you with that. Okay? Tara? 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 Tara! What do you want to say to me?
Yes. What do you want?
What do you want? That's a real acceptable question. You're saying my name over and over. What is it that you want? And so the same would apply to your dog. Fluffy, 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 Fluffy. The dog's like, what? And here it is, you've got it in your mind that when you're saying Fluffy, that should mean sit. Or when you're saying Fluffy, that should mean come. Or in this case, when you're saying Fluffy, that should mean look at me. But keep in mind, as you've said your dog's name, Fluffy, 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 over and over, you haven't actually told them to do anything. Yet your expectation remains unchanged. You're expecting them to do something, but you haven't actually even given them the chance to please you because you haven't told them. So let's try that again. Let's do it 2 more times, and it's just your dog's name, tell them to look. Now, what if they don't? What if they don't look? What if you say, Fluffy, look, and they don't? That's when you use what? Your puppy Pez dispenser. Okay? So you say, Fluffy, look, and Fluffy doesn't. Put the treat in front of Fluffy's nose, stand up. Where are they looking now? At me. And now we've used the bait to lure them into doing something successful so that we can give them the treat and have a party with them. So give it a try. Good job. All right, so now the other thing that we have to do, you need to make an executive decision for everybody that lives in your home who interacts with this dog. I'm going to ask each of you individually, and your answers, we'll deal with the answers. The question is, how many times do you want to tell your dog to do something before you want them to actually do it? Just one? Okay, what about this family? Just one? Just one. When you tell them to come, you want them to come on the first try? Okay, fair enough. Okay, we're ones across the board. Awesome. So here's the point. Dogs learn by repetition and consistency. If you repeat a command, Fluffy, look, look, Fluffy, Fluffy, look, look, Fluffy, the dog will actually learn to disregard your first 3 or 4 commands. And let me tell you guys, when your dog's running for the road, you do not want to have to tell them to come 6 times before they come back. Okay? So the point being is when you give the dog the command, you say it once, because make no mistake, they have good hearing. Okay? You say it once, and then if they don't, you use the treat to make it happen. Let's do that exercise one more time. Load your puppy Pez dispenser and tell them exactly what you want them to do. That yes is key. It's the instant that it happens. You mark that with yes. Good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our second exercise. Okay? This is the only one where we're expecting or we're waiting for direct eye contact. Okay? Dogs don't really appreciate direct eye contact. They generally view it as a challenge. So what we're going to do, we're going to load our puppy Pez dispenser. I'm going to borrow Dottie again here just for a second. She's nice and big. Perfect, thank you. And in this exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the treat out to the side. Okay? And I'm going to wait for Dottie to look me in the eye. Okay? Now what's going to be really key, is my patience. I'm going to tell her to look at me once, and then I'm going to do nothing but look her in the eye, to look at her eyes, to see for that millisecond that she flips over. She will give it to me if for no other reason than to say, hello, what's the holdup? Okay? So I'm going to say, look, I'm going to show her the treat. I'm going to hold it out to the side and say, Dottie, look. Yes, good girl. Good look, Dottie. Good work. Good girl, Dottie. That was awesome. Yay, Dottie, yay. Okay, there we go. And there's Dottie back to mom. Okay, so in this exercise, you load your puppy Pez dispenser. You show it to the dog, let them get a sniff so they know that it's there. Stand up nice and straight, hold the treat out to the side, and say, Fluffy, look. And then do nothing but wait. The longest I've ever had to wait was 12 minutes. 12 minutes.
And then when they look,
When they flip over, when they do that, they look you in the eye just for a second, you say, your only job there is to mark that with yes, get them the treat, and have a little party with them. Give that a try. Hand out to the side.
Nash, look. Yes, good girl, yes.
Wait for it.
Daddy, look. Yes, yes. Good boy.
Hold your hand a bit higher, Hannah. There we go.
Nash, look.
Okay? The only time that you should have to repeat the command is if if you're doing this exercise and your doorbell rings. You may have to bring them back and just start over. But it's not a look, 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 look. Okay? Now we have a couple of instances here, Dottie in particular, where she sees you have the treat and you're going to give it to her and she's trying to jump at the treat before you give it to her. Okay? How do we stop that from happening? The first thing is we want to make sure that the treat is out of the way. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I have a $50 bill right here. Okay, I have a $50 bill and I'm holding it. Let's pretend this treat here is my $50 bill. Okay? $50 bill. What do you want to do now?
I want to take it.
You want to take it. You absolutely want to take it. Nobody tackled me when I was this far away because you, in your mind, didn't think you could make it to me in time. But when it became within reaching distance, then the temptation started to overtake you, okay? And the same with the dog. So what happens? Nash, hi, buddy. Hi. Oh, I got a treat right there. I hold the treat. Excellent. Good work, buddy. I bring the treat too close. Guess what he's going to do? He's going to go up to get it. It's okay. Good job, buddy. Okay? So the big thing is when you're treating the dogs, you want to make sure that the treat is held nice and high, okay, for the dog, so that it's not within, oh, if I jump, I can possibly get it. Because if there's a chance that they think they can beat you to it, they're taking it, okay, especially at this stage of their training. So hold the treat nice and high, and you say yes, you get the treat down to them quickly, as opposed to slow, because if you do it too slow, the dog's going to jump for it, okay? So as soon as that treat becomes in the realm of possibility, they're going to go for it, all right? So that's your first and second exercise for this week. Third exercise, we talked about snow globes, okay? Snow globes, energy, okay? Energy comes in a whole wide variety of forms, okay? One is heat, okay? Another one is movement, okay? Energy is movement, or movement is energy. So what we want to do is we want to start to teach these dogs a little bit of patience, okay? Where we say, okay, we're going to do a stationary look, which is the first exercise we did, just get them to look at you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a couple steps, increasing the energy inside of them, and then at the end of those couple steps, we're going to get that stationary look again, okay? So on the scale of energy of 1 to 10, they're starting with a stationary look at about a 3 or 4. We start moving, it goes 5, 6, 7, and then at the other end, it goes back down to 5, 4, 3, okay? So this starts to teach the dog patience and energy management. When you can really teach your dog a lot about energy management, this is when you start to see the decrease in excessive jumping and barking and things like that, because they learn how to control their energy, okay? So this is what I want you to do. We're going to spread out just a little bit, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to get your dog's attention. I'm going to show you what the actual exercise looks like. Okay? I'm going to borrow Mr. Nash again just for 1 second. Okay? I'm going to show Nash that I have a treat. Say, good boy. Nash, look. Yes, good boy. Good look, Nash. And I walk a couple steps. I do it again. Nash, look. Yes, good boy. Good boy. And I walk a couple steps. Nash, look. Yes, good boy. Good boy. That's a good boy right there. Here we go. You're welcome. Okay? So this exercise is stationary look, couple of steps, stationary look, couple of steps. Now with each stationary look that they're successful at, you give them their little treat and you have a great party with them because they're doing something that, keep in mind, 15 minutes ago they didn't know how to do. Okay? So let's give that a try. We're going to do a couple right in a row here. Look, walk, look. Yes. Good work. Good job, mister. You did it. Perfect. Perfect. Wonderful. Well done. Everybody, well done. Now at this point in this exercise, I'm not worried about eye contact. I'm not worried about anything. When you're telling your dog to look and they look in your direction, that's good enough for me. Okay? Imagine you were at the park and you're walking your dog and there's another dog walking across. If you could say, Fluffy, look, and the dog just turns and looks in your direction and not at the dog walking by, isn't that a success in and of itself? Okay? Our fourth and final exercise for this particular lesson is marrying the two together, the look command and movement at the same time. Anybody, you guys ever see a dog show on TV or in person? You ever see a dog show? And it's the people in these huge ball gowns and tuxedos with the number on their arm, and they're walking like this, and the dog's like this. Like, if there was a post right there, the dog would be like out cold because they would just run it. They're so focused on the owner. So that's what we're going to learn today, okay? I'm not teaching you how to show your dog necessarily as much as how to keep their attention on you. So any right hand, are you guys all right-handed? Okay. Okay, if you're right-handed, okay, the puppy Pez dispenser is your right hand, and the dog is being held in your left. If at home you are a southpaw and you're left-handed, reverse it, okay? So all we're going to do is we're going to load our puppy Pez dispenser, and then I want you to look on the left side of your body for that little thing on your waist that's called either your hip bone or your love handle. One or the other, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you call it, okay? I want you to find that. Okay? And the action that you're going to do, you're going to take that puppy Pez dispenser and you're going to cross it over your body. And it's going to anchor right there on that, in my case, love handle. Okay? All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the dog and we're going to start moving and we're going to tell the dog to look at us. And as they're still looking at us, we're going to keep saying yes, yes, yes. Abort Dottie just for a second. I'll show you what it looks like. Hi, baby girl. Usually when I say, can I borrow your dog, people say, please do. Hello. Good girl. Good girl. So I'm going to show her the treat. I'm going to anchor here. Say, Dottie, look. Yes. And I'm going to move nice and slow. Yes. Yes. Look. Yes. Look. Yes. Yes. Good girl. Look. Yes. Yes. Good girl, Dottie. Excellent. Excellent work. That was fantastic. At the end of the day, I don't care if she's jumping. I don't care if she's trying to get the treat. The point being is she just walked in front of two other people, two other dogs, and her attention was still on me in one capacity. We'll work on toning that attention down a little bit, which is what you're waiting for, right? We're going to tone that down a bit in the later session. But for right now, if I'm walking, I'm adding energy, and the dog's attention with two other people and two other dogs in the same room, okay? Their attention is still on me. That's a huge milestone in success. And at the end of that exercise, you need to celebrate that accordingly. So let's give it a try. Let's just walk in a straight line and see if we can keep the dog's attention on you and not on anything else. Mister's doing excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful. Then give them the treat and have a huge party with them. That's fantastic. That's fabulous. That is fantastic. Well done. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this particular session, our first week together. So I'm going to summarize for you what I need you to do. So over the course of the next 7 days, you have homework to do. Okay, you've got homework to do. And the idea is to do these 4 exercises over the course of the week so that when we get back together, we will be able to build on that. If you don't do any other homework for the duration of this entire course, do this, because this is the precursor to everything else. Now here's a couple of things to remember, okay? When you do your homework, how should you do it? You should do your homework always with a leash attached. Whenever the dog is working, always have the leash attached. It solves 2 problems for you. Fundamentally, it solves 2 problems. The first is you can control the behavior, and the dog knows that they're actually working. You put the leash on, you're standing in your living room, the dog knows that they're working. The second thing that it accomplishes is the fact that when you tell your dog to look, if they choose not to, they can't run into the kitchen. Or they can't run away down the hallway or whichever. It allows you to maintain control so that you can make sure that you use the bait to help them be successful. So when you do your homework, it is no more, and I mean it, no more than 5 minutes at a time, at least once a day. If you can do it 5 minutes twice a day, that's twice as good. But don't exceed 5 minutes at one particular time. Don't repeat the command. Say it once and then let the bait do the work for you. Okay? Tell them, Fluffy, look, and then make it happen with the treat. Your dog's name is not a command. Okay? So be aware of that throughout the week, because you're going to notice yourself even doing it when you're calling them to come in. You're going to say, Fluffy, Fluffy. Make sure that you're telling Fluffy exactly what you want them to do. Your marker word is yes. Your correction word is ah. All right? Yes and ah. And then the other thing to take into the next week as you're practicing this is to make sure your body position is appropriate. And what that is, you know what? Stand up and have some confidence when you're working with your dog. Do they need you to be a pack leader? Do they need you to be an alpha? No, they just need to know that you're working as a team. So stand up and just tell them exactly what it is you want them to do. If you already know what the end result is, they will be very successful. You know what you need to accomplish this week? Okay, so we're going to stop this particular session. We'll get together this time next week for lesson number 2. But you have to work on the look command all week. All right? All right, we'll break from there. We'll see you guys next week.